I have Caroline Rose with me. Welcome. I am so excited to talk to you before you come to Turner Hall in Milwaukee. You're playing Saturday, April 22nd, and your album, The Art of Forgetting, just came out. And I think, the most common theme I see around you as an artist, just like reading up on you, is your penchant for reinvention. Um, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like you have a penchant for reinvention? And if so, is it intentional?
Not really. Yeah, not really. In fact, I'm always kind of surprised that it's like such a point that people make because to me, all my favorite artists have been shapeshifters, like Tom Waits and Bob Dylan. And I mean, even Joni Mitchell was constantly changing. I feel like so many artists are always changing. That's what we do. And to do the same thing twice or like make the same album twice is just never going to be it's never going to be for me. I'm too um I feel like I can't sit still long enough for that. It's boring to me. So I've always kind of thought of myself and my work as just being like a sponge that just keeps getting more and more information and you know life experience, and hopefully I'm getting better with time. But no, I wouldn't say it's intentional. I'm really just kind of living my life and trying to make art that reflects how I'm feeling at the time. So it's like a little time capsule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense to me. It seems reasonable, Caroline. Cool. All right. So this is the most personal album that you've made to date. Like, I mean, obviously all albums are personal, but it feels like this one goes a lot deeper. Can you explain or give like a little backstory? What was going on right before you recorded or wrote and recorded these songs?
Yeah, it was kind of a perfect storm of things. Um, I was, I put out an album March 6th of 2020, and I think we got 4 shows in before the whole thing just completely came to a shocking halt. Um, with really no end in sight, and I had already sort of been having just this like identity crisis. I don't know what it was exactly, but I think it was a cautionary tale for me making Superstar because I was wearing so many hats in the making of that album. And by the end of it, I felt like I had left so little over left over for my own life and like my own personal life outside of music that um it just felt like when the shows all got canceled, it felt like a huge question of like what have I done? Like I've left nothing for myself, and who am I without my work? Like who am I without my career? And it was a big kind of shocking moment to me of how I need to set my own boundaries in my life and reprioritize what I actually think fuels me. And then simultaneously I was going through this really difficult breakup. It was like something I didn't want to do that I felt like I had to for myself, but I didn't really know how to respect myself or like love myself or even be kind to myself with all this going on. And that was just personal. I think also at the time, everybody was isolating. It was incredibly hard to be going through this painful stuff virtually alone. Um, I had uh, I had to move out of my house, and I was staying, with my sound engineer in his extra house in Vermont, and so everything just felt like very out of place, and I felt really lost. And the whole time I was kind of just chronicling this feeling of that was the I would say that that was the worst of it, but it kind of got a little worse when I went back to Texas and then uh still started the healing process in a totally different way. But I was kind of documenting this the whole time over the course of a year and a half, 2 years. Uh, and by the end of that time, like when I had all these songs and the album was starting to come together, it just seemed like a perfect stamp in time of this this kind of like transformative process that was happening for me.
Mhm. Yeah. Now you have, like, the time capsule from that era
Yeah,
of your
exactly, yeah.
life. Yeah, I guess, don't think it's, like, correct in saying, like, you find it comforting that everyone else is going through the same stuff or in it with you, but, something about the universality of, like, a global pandemic probably made it a little more comforting. Do you feel like you kinda had, like, "Oh, everyone's going through this." It feels more, like, unified, like a bummer moment for the the whole universe instead of just, like, the universe dumping on you.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that I think there's a collective trauma that we still haven't really reconciled yet.
Mm,
I feel like, the ports opened up and everyone just moved the hell on, and I I'm that's both, like, insane to me, and at the same time, I recognize, there was a lot of pain from that time that nobody wants to have to, like, relive. Um, but yeah, that's on a global level. That was actually the thing that I had the easiest problem with, I think, because it it wasn't lonely. It was something that everybody was experiencing. But the parts that were difficult were facing my own, I had all this time now and with no end in sight really. And there were so many things I had to reconcile just in my things about myself that I knew were causing me problems and like causing me my own pain and suffering. Um, and things that happened in my relationship that I was like, this could have been prevented uh, had I really understood myself and respected myself more and really loved myself more, I think.
mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was the hard part.
Yeah. Um, I wanna talk a little bit about the themes in Miami because I feel like that song especially kinda dives into those feelings, and we're also currently playing the song, so I feel like our listeners would love to, hear, like, a little bit of expansion on that song, where it originated from, and what you were processing while writing it.
Yeah, well, at the time, that was one of the songs that came earlier in the writing process. And usually, when I look back on it, all the darker material was their earlier stuff. And as I was kind of healing through the process of time and self-reflection and hopefully some self-improvement, the songs got a little funnier and like a little bit lighter. There are moments of brevity, I think. But that song, it's I felt like I had been bottling up my emotions for a really long time, just trying to keep it together. Just keep it together for my band, keep it together for my relationship, keep it together for myself, just pretending that I'm, this like emotionally stable, strong person that can handle all, all these things. And I think looking back, it was like shaking up a carbonated bottle, and the top is about to pop off. Because at a certain point, I was just like, wow, I have so much anger and like so much resentment that had built up, and not only for my relationship, but also for myself. It was just like putting so much blame on myself, and I flip flop between being the type of person that I feel really comfortable on a stage. I feel like I was really designed for that in a lot of ways, but a totally different side of me feels like a complete outcast. Like I don't fit in anywhere. I'm I'm like never gonna be good enough. And the two I flip flop all the time of which Caroline's gonna show up. And that song was really it was almost conversational. Um And the first part of it is like thinking back on this vacation to Miami, and that it's like this beautiful scene where a lot of people are going to enjoy their winter break on the beach and eat some good food and drink cocktails. And inside, on the outside, I was like loving it, just like everyone else. And on the inside, there was just all this turmoil that was happening, and that was like one of the moments that I realized I how unhappy I was. Um and so the first half of the song is a reflection on that, and then the second half is a conversation with my mom about like what am I going to do now? Like what I'm in this situation now. What do I do? Like I have all these feelings. I don't know what to do with them. I don't know. I can barely like get up in the morning now. It just feels like I shot myself in both feet. Um, so it's really just like an emotional purge, I guess.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. That makes sense to me listening to that. Um, yeah, I think this album feels like, yeah, it probably let you process a lot of things in a healthy way, and you also said, you're kind of bringing your family into it. Like a conversation with your mom, and also you included, like, conversations from your grandma, who you call Mee Maw, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was really wonderful and, like, a super grounding thing to include in there. It just, like, created a whole picture of your process. Can you, like, explain the relationship you've had with your grandmother, even though she's passed? Like, what was your relationship with her like when you were very young?
Um, I mean, she lived down the house or down the street from our house. And like, I mean, we were so close. Is my dad's mother, and she's from Mississippi. So she was just always a fixture in my life, always. When I was a kid, our our house burned down, and we lived with my grandma for over a year while they were finding us a new place to live. And I remember those years. Like I remember everything that we did living with her, and my grandpa. And my family are all of us are really tight. We're really close. So when something difficult happens, we lean on each other. Um, and my grandma, she just to me, she represents pure love. She represents pure love for me and my sister and my family. And she stayed alive just to love us. Like
Mhm.
I truly believe that she, lived this really long life. And I think she held on for so long. She just wanted to experience everything with us. And she would call me every day, even as she was kind of losing her memory, um, just to check in on me, like make sure I was eating. And so, in the album, it felt so right to include that. It was like the last thing that I added, but the whole time I was making the album, I was like, I know I need to include these voicemails from my grandma because I had them from like many years over the course of many years. And it was interesting to hear, how over time you could hear her you could essentially hear her dying, like you could hear her losing her memory. She'd be saying the same thing each time, but over the course of like many years, it would start to change a little bit. Like she would forget things. She'd forget that she called me. She'd like get distracted and be talking to someone else in the room. Um, so I thought as a storytelling device, just telling a story about this time, it was really important to include her, because we spoke so often.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like a lot of folks who listen could connect to something like that too. It just felt like a whole picture of who you are and what you were going through. So I really I really thought that was wonderful that you included those voicemails.
Thank you.
Yeah. So your album is called The Art of Forgetting. And why would you say that forgetting is an art? And what place does forgetting hold in your life now? Is it something that you find helpful?
Yeah, well, this theme of memory and this idea of forgetting kept coming up again and again. Because at first, I'd written the song Miami, and it's a line in Miami. And when I wrote that song, I just had so much anger, and um it just had built up, and I just kept thinking of, like, I think the most immediate thing at that time, was this breakup that I was kind of processing. Um, and it felt like she was moving on so quickly, like, because our anxiety gets the best of us, and we're like, we're being left behind. Um, and it feels insane to me that you can be, in love with a person and be building a life with a person and have all these memories with a person and, see a future with this person. And then when it doesn't work out, you just stop speaking entirely. It seems crazy to me. And I think it always will seem insane that you can, like, be so close with someone and then it's like cold turkey, out, heart out. Um, and I just thought it was like, at that time, the art of forgetting was more like taking a pill, and so you can move on. And I was also reading this book called The Body Keeps the Score, because I was kind of doing just like deep dive into myself, and um, realizing that that's exactly what the body does sometimes, is it forgets things that are really painful, that were really traumatic, so we can survive, we can move on and have a healthy life and not be dwelling in this, like, really horrible thing that happened. So, in the first, um, I guess, like, the first iteration of the title, it did have this heaviness to it. It was, like, kind of dark. And then the more I was kind of healing through this process, the more it started feeling like a healthy process of letting go of things, where you
Mhm.
can, like, hold a memory, and then you can, like, let it go. And it seemed like more, um it seemed like the verb was changing. The art of, like, to forget, it was changing from something that was like um a transitive verb to an intransitive verb or something like that,
Mhm. Mhm.
like
Yeah,
more passive.
that makes sense. Yeah, when I first read that, I thought that seems like unhealthy to willfully forget something, but the way you're explaining it sounds very, like, very well thought out, and mature, like, you processed, like, what that word actually means to you. So
Yeah, I've done a lot of thinking on it. I had a lot of time to think.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like, with everything in the rear view, kind of, it seems like, what's your biggest takeaway from what you just went through, and what are you most proud of yourself for accomplishing?
Man, I wish I could say it's in the rear view. I Performing these songs is really difficult. It's been really difficult. Um, and this is just the beginning, so I know it's going to get easier as we go along. But man, that the first week of just doing radio and just these little performances, I cried every single show.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, but your audience is probably there for you. So they, like, if anything, the people who love you and follow you probably they'll support you if you need to still
Yeah,
process
yeah.
emotions, you know?
I wonder if the audience realizes just how much it is a mutual it's a mutual
Mhm.
relationship.
Yeah.
I really, I need to feel, like, safe to perform these songs in a way, because it's just a lot for me. Yeah, it's really hard for
Mhm.
me.
Yeah, no doubt.
Probably why I haven't made such a vulnerable record yet. It's like, this is what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, so, like, do you give yourself, like, time in, like, the weeks that you're touring? Like, do you take little breaks, or do you have shorter tours, or
I mean, I wish I could say yes. I find my own little moments, even if it's like while we're driving these long drives, I'm just, I can sit and meditate and or do whatever I need to do. But touring is just always been so difficult. It's so difficult. I feel like unless you have boatloads of money to throw at it, to just have an easier experience that can allow for more like leisure time,
Mhm.
um, it's really like you have to Tetris your body into a situation to make it work. Um, and I'm handling it okay so far. I'm doing better now, but that for the first couple weeks, we've been like 3 weeks of nonstop production rehearsals and like getting everything ready. And I haven't had a day off yet, so
Oh
that's
my
like,
gosh.
but I'm
Yeah.
handling it better than I ever have before, which I have to pat myself on the back. It's been really hard. And I have like the most insane team of people. It's like all my friends who are so talented and all workaholics.
I mean, yeah, it helps to have friends and when they're like crazy supportive of you. Yeah, you feel like you can do anything, right?
Yeah, I would eat an apple full of razor blades for all these people.
That is friendship.
It is.
Yes. Well, okay. So, you're on tour right now, but you're stopping in Milwaukee on the 22nd. What can folks who are going to the show in Milwaukee look forward to? And what are you looking forward to most about coming to Milwaukee?
Well, hopefully I get to see some of it besides the venue. It's usually what we, get to experience. But
Yeah.
I don't know, in little ways we get to experience the city that we're in, like via the cheese that shows up on our rider or like a
Yes.
local beer.
Yes.
Um, but I think as far as the show, we're playing Turner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful room. I've never headlined a show there, so it's gonna be, I mean, I think it's gonna be a beautiful night. We have this like really gorgeous light show that took approximately forever to design and figure out how, we're essentially a traveling circus. So we have to figure out how like things will scale to different sized rooms because no two rooms are the same. So I actually have memorized like all the dimensions of all these shows so we can like fit this light show. And I think it's gonna be so beautiful. Um I'm just excited that it's like, working, and I think people will have just a stunning visual element to the music, which I've always wanted to do. And, obviously we can do that with Superstar, so I'm glad that it's finally happening.
Awesome. Well, we're all looking forward to seeing you here in Milwaukee. And with this beautiful light show, the traveling circus of Caroline Rose is coming, playing with Kyra's Creature Club. We're so excited to have you back. So I hope you have a awesome rest of your tour up until the 22nd, and then we'll see you then.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
yeah, thank you so much for talking with me and for your time today.
All right, well, I'll see you on the 22nd.
All right, Caroline. Bye.
Bye.